Welcome to the Silent Room. This is a place for cinematic audio stories. Stories meant to be listened to in the dark, with the lights low and the world quiet. Every week, you'll hear a new story. Psychological, mysterious, and unsettling in ways that stay with you. If this is your first time here, welcome. Now, let's begin. I've always been good at keeping secrets. Small ones, usually. Like the fact that I didn't actually give up smoking 6 months ago, despite what I told Sarah. I like the ritual of it. The way the smoke curls into the night air, invisible against the dark. I stand on our balcony, 4th floor, tucked into the corner where the streetlights don't reach. It is long after midnight. The apartment complex is a horseshoe of concrete and glass, hushed and heavy with the sleep of 300 people. Sarah is asleep inside. She's a heavy sleeper, a gift, she calls it. I call it a convenience. I leaned against the railing tonight, the cold metal biting through my palms. I looked across the courtyard to the east wing. Most of the windows were dark squares, except for Unit 402. It's supposed to be empty. The for lease sign only came down a week ago, but the building manager told me the new tenants weren't moving in until the 1st of the month. But there she was. An elderly woman. She was standing perfectly still behind the glass. No lights were on in her unit, but the moon caught the pale white of her hair and the stillness of her posture. She wasn't looking at the courtyard. She was looking at me. The next morning, I saw Marcus, the building's daytime caretaker. I played it off as curiosity. New neighbors in 402? Marcus stopped his machine. The silence that followed was vacuum sealed. No one in 402, he said. He didn't laugh. He didn't even smile. He just stared at me for a second too long. Must have been a reflection. Keep your head down, Elias. People in this city. They see things that aren't there when they're tired. But I wasn't tired. For the next 3 nights, I watched. A flicker of a television screen 3 hours past midnight. The sound of a heavy ceramic plate clinking against a sink. I called the police. I had to. 2 officers came to our door on Thursday. They didn't go to 402 first. They came to me. "Mr. Thorne," the older one said. His eyes were flat, unmoving. "We checked the unit. It's empty. Just some crates and old furniture." Sarah stood behind me, her hand resting on my shoulder. Her touch was warm, grounding. "He's just been working too hard," she told them, her voice like silk. "He gets these fixations. Don't you, honey?" I looked at the officers. I looked at Sarah. The officers didn't look like men who had found nothing. They looked like men who had been told exactly what to say. I waited until Sarah's breathing leveled out, until the rhythmic rise and fall of her chest told me she was deep in sleep. I didn't go to the balcony this time. I went to the east wing. The hallway smelled of fresh paint and industrial cleaner. The mystery room was at the very end. I tried the handle. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open. It didn't creak. It glided on silent hinges. The air inside 402 was dead. No circulation, just the heavy, flat scent of old books and something sharp like medicinal alcohol. She was there, sitting in the center of the room. I expected her to jump, to scream, to call for help. But she didn't even blink. She sat with her chin tilted up, watching the door as if she'd been expecting a different guest. "You're not her," she whispered. Her voice was thin, like parchment being folded. "The police, the manager, they said this place was empty," I stammered. My hands were shaking. But hers? Hers were as still as stone, resting on her knees. "They're paid to say it," she said, finally looking at me. There was no fear in her eyes. It was worse. It was a terrifying, hollow peace. "They call it witness protection, a fancy term for burying someone alive so the world doesn't have to look at the mess." She beckoned me closer. I sat on the edge of a crate, the wood cold against my skin. With a deep breath, she started telling her story, as if she knew I wanted to know. "I was a single mother," she began, her eyes drifting toward the dark window. "I thought she was a miracle. For years, it was just us. But there was a coldness in her, a quiet, clinical rot that started when she was small. She didn't cry when she fell. She didn't laugh when I held her. She just observed." She leaned forward, her face entering a sliver of moonlight. "By the time she was 16, the animals in the neighborhood started disappearing. Then it was the local children. She didn't kill for anger. She killed to see how things worked. She has a way of making people do things, a charm that feels like a spider web. She turned the neighbors against each other. She made a boy at her school walk into traffic just by whispering in his ear. "I'm the one who did it," the woman whispered, her voice cracking for the first time. "I gave the detectives the journals. I showed them the basement. I watched them laid her away in chains. The judge gave her life without parole. They put her in a maximum security ward behind 3 sets of steel doors." She paused, a jagged breath catching in her throat. 2 years ago, the facility had a glitch. The cameras went dark for 6 minutes. When the power came back, the cell was empty. No blood, no broken locks, just a note on the pillow that said, "I'm coming home, Mother." The system panicked. They couldn't find her, so they hid me. They told the world she was dead, and they put me in this concrete box to wait for the end. She reached into her cardigan and pulled out a weathered, cracked photograph. She looked at it for a long time, her thumb tracing the edge of the image with a tenderness that made my stomach turn. "She was such a beautiful baby," the woman whispered. A single tear tracked through the deep lines on her face. "I can still feel the weight of her in my arms. I still love her. That's the curse of being a mother. You can't stop loving the monster you made. I gave her life, and now she uses that life to destroy others. And one day, she will take mine." She looked up at me, the sadness in her eyes suddenly hardening back into that hollow, terrifying peace. She seemed to settle into the chair, the weight of her story leaving her breathless. After a long, quiet moment, she reached out. "Sorry to bother you with my troubles," she said softly. "I hope you never have to encounter anything like this. No one should." She handed me the photo. I held it up to the amber light of the street lamp outside. It was a picture of a young girl at the beach laughing. But as I squinted, I noticed a dark, circular blemish on her shoulder blade. It wasn't a natural mole. It was a peculiar, puckered mark, the distinct, jagged scar of a cigarette burn. I don't remember walking back across the courtyard. My mind was a storm of noise. I entered our apartment. The air was still. Sarah was sitting up in bed, silhouetted against the window. But something was different. For the 3 years we'd been married, Sarah always slept with her hair down, a thick, dark curtain that she said made her feel safe. Tonight, her hair was pulled back, tied in a tight, severe bun I had never seen before. "You're up late," she said. Her voice was steady, like a heartbeat. "I couldn't sleep," I replied. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart hammering against my ribs. She turned away from me to reach for a glass of water. As the silk of her nightgown shifted, the movement exposed the nape of her neck and the skin of her right shoulder. In the pale moonlight, I saw it. A small black tattoo. I have seen it so many times but never noticed. 3 interlocking lines, a triskelion. But it wasn't just a design. I leaned in, my breath catching. Underneath the fresh ink, the skin was slightly raised. Even though it had healed years ago, there was a faint, circular patch of silvered scar tissue, the exact size and shape of the mark in the photo. She hadn't just gotten a tattoo. She had used the ink to camouflage a memory. Sarah set the glass down. She didn't turn around. Instead, she looked into the vanity mirror across the room. In the reflection, our eyes locked. She looked at me the way an apex predator looks at something it has already caught. "The cigarette smell is getting worse," she said. Her voice was a low melodic hum. "You really should quit. It's a dirty habit. It leaves marks, permanent marks." I looked at her reflection, the woman I had shared a bed with for 1,000 nights. I thought of the mother in Unit 402, waiting in the dark for a daughter who liked to play. Sarah tilted her head, a small, knowing smile touching the corners of her mouth. "I guess you met my mother," she whispered. "Did she tell you her version? Did she tell you how she used to purify me when I was a baby? How she used to hold the cherry of her cigarette against my skin to see if I was hollow inside?" She reached out, her fingers lingering on the switch of the bedside lamp. "She's right about one thing, though. I don't feel love. I feel possession, and I've worked very hard to keep what's mine. I'm not going back to a cage." Click. The lamp went out. The room plunged into total darkness. I stayed frozen on the edge of the mattress. I listened for the sound of her moving, but there was only the heavy, terrifying weight of the silence. I realized then that the woman across the courtyard wasn't just hiding from a monster. She was the one who had created it. And now the monster was home. Thank you for listening. If this story stayed with you, you're always welcome back in the silent room. New stories every week. Until next time, take care.